What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Bucks 3D's YouTube channel. This is going to be step 2 in our beginner's guide to 3D printing. In this video, we're going to be going over PLA, PETG, and TPU, the three major filaments you're going to be using as a beginner. All right, so we're going to jump into PLA first. PLA is the beginner's filament. It's great for making small parts, toys around the house, maybe small holders, but really isn't good for any kind of strength or UV protection. So make sure you don't keep it in a car or put it outside, or it's going to melt or warp. What PLA is really good at is being consistent across all manufacturers. So if you were to buy from Overture, Elegoo, or Polymaker, all those PLAs should print very similar at very similar temperatures, unlike PETG and TPU. All right, next we have PETG, which is very strong and durable and has great layer adhesion. As you can see, I have this swatch here. I can try to break this, and it's not going to be easy. Might have to hit the gym more, but also PETG has great UV protection. So if you put this outside, it will do a lot better than PLA. Even inside of a car, I've put plenty of automotive products out there, and none of them have melted. Now, the negatives to PETG is that it does absorb a lot more water, and when you're printing it, if you don't have it dried out, it can cause a little bit of moisture to vaporize inside the nozzle, giving it kind of like a little bit of speckles around the layer lines. Also, it can make the PETG very stringy, so that's also because of the moisture or just because of your temperatures. So the one thing that's different between PETG and PLA is that it's a lot easier to print with PLA until you get those settings down. So I would recommend just making sure you're dialed in those settings, then you can start using PETG more consistently. Next up, we have TPU, which, as you can see, here's the swatch for TPU, this nice clear one. And if I try to break that, it will not snap at all. No matter how much I bend and twist it, it's going to pretty much go back to its original form. And these were all printed at the same vertical position. The negatives of TPU is that it also holds moisture and is very, very, very slow to print. So if you're using TPU, make sure you understand that it's going to take almost triple the amount of time to print it versus PLA and PETG. Now, some advice for getting filament. I always recommend that you stick with the same manufacturer. Even though I mentioned how PLA is very easy to use with multiple manufacturers, if you do stick to the same one, it's very likely you'll be able to dial those settings in and get perfect prints almost every time. Okay, now we're going to jump over to Bamboo Lab Studio, and you'll see I have 3 cylinders here with all different types of filament set to each. I have PLA as the blue, PETG as the yellow, and TPU as the red. Now you'll see it says generic next to the PLA. That is just the preset for a generic profile that can be used for many types of brands. You'll see when I drop down the menu here, I have Bamboo, Generic, Overture, Polymaker, and Sunlu. Now Bamboo, obviously Bamboo Lab Studio, that's their filament. And if you were to select any of these, you can actually go and order the Bamboo filament from their website. And when you put it on your AMS, it will read it using an RFID chip and tell you what filament you're using. So it's really just a plug and play system. But I preferably go with Generic because I like to save money and go with some of the other brands out there. You have Overture, Polymaker, and Sunlu, who also got their way onto the Bamboo Lab Studio program. So obviously all these guys are very similar when it comes to quality, but I mainly stick with the generic settings and kind of tweak them to what I like. Now I'm going to show you real quick just the time difference when it comes to printing TPU. If you see, I have PLA on this cylinder, which goes to 1 hour and 57 minutes. I have PETG also at 1 hour and 57 minutes. And then if I go down to my TPU, you will see it's at 6 hours and 33 minutes of model printing time. So yeah, it does really increase your print time. So make sure when you're doing TPU, it's for a specific reason. You're not just using it because you have that filament laying around. It's going to be a waste of money and a waste of time. And when it comes to money, you'll see that TPU is more expensive. PETG is normally on the lower end and PLA is kind of somewhere in the middle. So I would say always stick with PETG and PLA so you can keep your costs down when you're prototyping or doing small stuff around the house. Once you jump into some of the carbon fiber filaments, ASA, ABS, some of those filaments can be a lot more costly. Now, if you want to make any edits on your filament, we will get into more of this later on, but you'll see there's 3 dots next to the preset. If you click that and go to edit, you will see that there's a filament tab, and under here is where your nozzle temperatures are and your bed temperature. So if we start at the top, you'll see PLA. We're going to scroll down and go to print temperature. For the textured bed, that's what we're using. I'm going to increase my bed temp to 60 degrees for my PLA for the initial layer. So that means that first layer that gets put down is going to be at a hotter temperature on the bed, so it has a better chance of adhering to it. We have our nozzle temperature, so 220 and 220. If we want to increase the nozzle temperature as well for the initial layer versus the rest, you can. I usually don't, but this is where you would find those options and tweak those settings. The other really popular settings that people change is the max volumetric speed and the flow ratio. But again, we'll get more into that later on in the guide. Now, there are many different types of filaments when it comes to PLA, PETG, and TPU. I would stick to the generic version first, just the standard one that's the cheapest. But eventually, you can get into like PLA silk, which will have some dual colors. They have PETG carbon fiber. There's different softness of TPU. But for the most part, people stick with 95A. Just make sure not to put that through your AMS unit because it will clog the motor. There is a specific TPU meant for the AMS called TPU for AMS from Bamboo Labs. So if you want a version of TPU to go into that, you can use it. It's just a lot more stiff. So I would, again, just try to stick with those standard filaments, and we'll get further into other more advanced filaments in future videos. We're going to end there, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below, and we'll see you in the next video.